What would you tell the consultants, the agency owners, and the in-house marketers who have clients and execs breathing down their necks about AI visibility? What should these people tell management?
Well, for agencies, it's actually kind of quite a good sales technique, if I'm being honest, right? And it's probably why it's become such a big thing to tell people that this is really important, because obviously this kind of new thing that can be bolted on as an add-on. So in a way, agencies have a kind of incentive to try and sell in AI visibility, etc. Whereas if I was in an internal company, a large publisher like I work in quite a lot, I would pretty much say chatbots are irrelevant to the picture. It's just not big enough. Like, we might want to think about it for the future, but like in terms of tracking right now, like there just wouldn't be no emphasis whatsoever. I think when you're talking about AIO,
Wait. So you would tell the management, they're like, okay, we gotta focus on AI visibility. We gotta show up in Perplexity. We gotta show up in ChatGPT. Come on, we gotta show up in AI reviews. And so you would say to these people, no, it actually doesn't matter.
100% on Perplexity, like absolutely. It's a very small entity. The numbers are probably under 15 million uniques a month, which is significantly smaller than entities like the New York Times. No one tracks the New York Times for visibility. Like you might do if you're in PR, right? But you're not doing that in a kind of methodical way that is kind of like audience building, say how people used to track Facebook, and they certainly do with Google. So Perplexity is a write-off. ChatGPT is like of mild interest just to see how much it increases. But in terms of actual trying to create something that to appear on there, I would say that's irrelevant. AIO.
Why?
It's too small as a traffic referral entity. I think it's pretty big as a potential in terms of visibility and things like that. But we're talking if my website traffic is saying I'm getting 2% of referrals from a source, that source is just not of interest. It's significantly smaller than Bing, so why would I bother with it? I should be expending most of my resources on the top, say 3 or 4 referrers, most of which is going to be Google. I don't really see anything coming from the SEO community about Facebook referral. Is X referrals?
So if I'm the exec, I'm playing the part of the exec because I believe in a lot of the stuff that you're saying. So I'm playing the part of the exec who is giving in to the AI hype, who's reading posts on LinkedIn, who's watching Instagram reels or YouTube videos about the AI hype. And the exec's like, okay, fine, it's 2%. So how do we get it to 15%? Come on, everyone's using ChatGPT. So how do we get it up? How do we get the referrals up with ChatGPT?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't think it's going to be 15% anytime soon for any large website. If you go to SimilarWeb and look at the referrals from, say, Perplexity or ChatGPT for a large site like the New York Times or the Guardian, they're like orders of magnitude smaller than Google. So you kind of got to look at the kind of overall referral facts in that they're just not very big to refer traffic. Now, AI overviews, is just a different beast entirely. Like I don't put that in the same category. I think it is important, but at the same time, it's still 12% of all queries of visibilities. That's an average, of course, and it's different per sector. But also trying to optimize to appear in them is a bit of a false economy because they're really, really high turnover volume. Like they change a lot over a 3-month period. They're actually really difficult to track. There's been a number of studies about that. So there's a huge turnover of transients of results. When actually, if you rank on Google if you've got good optimization, you're probably going to end up in AIO anyway. So I just think it's kind of like, what are we actually optimizing here for? Like, probably SEO, right? Like, that's what it all boils down to.
This method of marketing is so effective, I had to make sure it wasn't against Google's rules before I kept doing it. It's a form of SEO I call compact keywords. Whereas most SEO focuses on putting up articles to answer questions how, what, when, Compact Keywords focuses on putting up dozens of pages that sell to searchers who are actually looking to buy. These pages rank on Google and convert so much better than normal that when I discovered this years ago, I couldn't believe this was allowed. It's less work too. The average Compact Keywords page is only 415 words. Compact Keywords is a 13-hour deep course on getting sales with SEO. A customer recently said, "Each lesson is dense with information. You're giving years worth of experience boiled down into 15 to 30-minute lessons with no filler or fluff. I feel like I'm gaining a new superpower." Compact Keywords is about setting up an SEO funnel that brings you sales for years and years and years. It works with AI, it's less work than traditional SEO, and it makes way more money. You can get it now at compactkeywords.com. Back to the podcast. Yeah, I agree. I agree with the stuff that you're saying. That's why, I mean, you saw my podcast on your like list of 10, what was it? It was, you wrote, here we go. I think I have this.
10 reasons why geo is not a thing.
10 reasons why geo, the AI SEO acronym, is not a thing. And I covered that on the podcast because I agree with that. But, you know, there's all these stories floating around on X, on Threads, on the SEO subreddit of SEO consultants getting fired because they're told that they are not focusing on AI visibility enough. And so there's a choice. They could just say, we're full in on AI visibility and keep on doing the SEO things, which really is like AI visibility. So they could just lie to the clients. Or they could try to educate the clients, or if they're in-house, their managers. They could try to educate the execs and managers. What do you think is the better way to do it?
I think that trying to educate the people who are kind of putting pressure on, you know, do it because we think it's big, right? You've got to look to the underlying facts, and I think responsible agencies will do that. And I think there's a absolutely reasonable approach of like educating your clients and managers in what matters and what doesn't, and what the potential, you know, what the future looks like. Like, that's just good management, right? But saying, all right, and just accepting that the client is always right, and I'm just going to do that because they reckon we should be at 15% referral. It's just like, well, you know, I just don't see that ever happening. In fact, I don't really see a world where chatbots refer double-digit traffic to websites. I just think it's too much of a stopgap. Like AIO, again, that is different. But like the hype seems to be around ChatGPT replacing Google as one kind of battleground, and then Perplexity as a general concept. Like those two things, I don't believe they're going to happen. I just think by the time we get to possibly even 5%, right? Like the game might have changed quite significantly. We might have general purpose agents that no longer need chat interfaces, and much more companies are able to deploy them. And that's utterly transformative. And I don't know when it will come, but like it could come pretty soon. Like the pace of change is pretty electric.
I actually wanted to ask you about that. I guess I'll ask you about that now, because I do want to go into your thoughts on. I mean, I know what you're gonna say, but I still would like for you to say it. But I am curious if you've tried Atlas and what you think of OpenAI's new browser.
I haven't actually tried it, so it's only launched recently, right? But I've definitely got an opinion on the hype, right? So it's a Chromium-based browser, which is open source based on Chrome, right? So it's kind of Google's technology in a way, and Google has a 70% market share of browsers, right? And one of the things about its large antitrust case in the US was they were going to decouple Chrome from Google, and that would cause a great schism in the digital marketing world, and you know Google might be transformed. Well, it's not going to happen. So basically Google is going to continue being a very vast entity, and probably by December it will have a very strong agentic solution built into Chrome, because we know that Gemini 3 update is going to come in December. That it's a pretty much an annual thing that Google releases a lot of big AI updates in December. And how long are we away? 6 weeks? Well, that's a very short time for ChatGPT Atlas or OpenAI's Atlas to get into a 70% market share. So when I see people going, ChatGPT, OpenAI just killed Chrome, etc., I'm just like, this is just so boring, isn't it? It's just like, it's a good way to get likes, but it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, well, so what do you think? What do you think the more agentic Chrome that you're predicting Google to drop? What do you think that will look like?
I think all these browsers in the stopper gap are going to be fairly similar in that you would have a sort of prompt box that works a bit like a chat interface now, or like how Gemini does in Google Drive, which I think is a really, really useful system, right? You can go into Google Drive now and Gemini's there natively, and you can search your documents and chat to it about what those includes and like get specific quotes out of it. And like, let's say that you have financial stuff in there, like VAT numbers, like sometimes a pain to find, like all of that can happen. So you can see that concept going into a browser quite quickly. And I think part of the problem with the sort of agentic browser concept is that people don't trust AI enough yet to take action for them. And I don't think, no, companies are miles away from that. And I sort of see it a little bit like how e-commerce was in about 2001, 2002, just after the dot-com bubble. In that, I specifically remember my mum saying, I wanted to buy something off Amazon. She was like, don't put your credit card details in there. Don't put my credit card details in there. It's not safe. And people are going to think that about agentic browsers because you might prompt it to buy you something, but unless buying something is incredibly specific, how's it going to know what your preferences are in the short term? Over time, you might have a relationship with your agentic assistant so that it knows these preferences much better. But we're going to be deeply uncomfortable. Many people are going to be very uncomfortable with that situation for quite a long time. So I don't actually see... I wouldn't predict like a massive change to like the agentic browser by next year. You've got to think as well, like one thing that is deeply missing from a lot of the hype around this is like how ingrained people's behaviors already are, you know, like, and how glued they are already to mobile phones and such and like. You don't even think about it, right? I spend way too much time on LinkedIn, right? Possibly hours a day. I just log in.
Habitual.
Yeah, and it's like that with Google's position particularly is so hard to dislodge, and why it is called a monopoly so often is that when you have a 70% browser share plus a 96% of search on mobile, right? It's so hard for a new player to kind of completely change that. You know, even in 5 years, that's a very difficult challenge. Well, of course it is. Otherwise, it would have happened.
It's funny to me how I see there's some like thought leaders in digital marketing who they go and they write these long posts on X and Threads and LinkedIn about how 24 months from now everything is going to be different. You're not going to be doing a search, like your AI is going to be doing everything. And I really believe that these people know that what they're writing is BS when they're writing it. Like I actually believe that they know that they know that they are writing it for the clicks and they don't believe in that themselves. I'm just like, because I'm like, there's no way. And honestly, I'm not as bullish on agentic browsers as you are, but because like I just don't think from what I've seen, AI can't handle all the context, and it can't handle all the text. Like even if this podcast, it was just 30 minutes, and it'll likely be longer than 30 minutes, but even if it was just 30 minutes, and I took the transcript of our podcast, of our 30-minute podcast, and I gave it to ChatGPT, and I said, write a description for this podcast. And this happens literally every day because ChatGPT writes the descriptions for all my episodes, even the ones that are 10 minutes long. It will create things in the description that weren't talked about, that I didn't say. I will say, give a list of bullets for the things that were talked about. It will write things that I didn't discuss, that my guest didn't discuss. It's hallucinating with a 10-minute transcript. How is it supposed to handle all the text on a page and take that into context with other pages that I looked at? So maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe my thinking is wrong in this, but that's actually why I only trust AI for very, very, very specific minor solutions. That's my take.
Yeah, I think it's a perfectly reasonable take, right? It's like the AI does still make mistakes, and I think a lot of people are worried about that, and that is going back to the point around trusting something to take over your browser. Like that's exactly the problem. Meredith Whittaker, the CEO of Signal's got a really good video about this. You might be able to just find it by saying like googling Meredith Whittaker agents. It's kind of like, well, you have this agentic layer that's kind of meant to execute all these tasks for you, but basically people aren't going to trust it, and it's just going to take a huge amount of time for that layer of permission to be embedded. And I'm quite a big fan of.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me ask you, why should they trust it? If it's gonna, like, from my experience, it hallucinates with just the most minor things in such a small amount of text. Why should people trust it?
I think people who are very plugged into AI at the minute will be prepared to take those risks and therefore make out that it's better than it is. And I think there's also been quite a large ongoing frustration within a lot of companies in that AI is not quite as good as it made out to be. And most tools that I use, and I've tested out a lot, generally ended in frustration. Like, we created a top 100 tools, right? And like for Agentic, the company we founded, and it has been a frustrating time. There's probably about 10 tools that I think are amazing. I would say though that also ChatGPT or Claude, etc., if you compare them to when ChatGPT was first launched, which was almost exactly 3 years ago, talking 35 months, like how many steps forward have we taken in that time? Like it's been absolutely enormous. So that's 3 years. But I sort of think to myself, most of the questions I asked it, like it returns a pretty good answer. I sort of think to myself, well, in 2 years' time, is it going to be that much better than what it is now? And I think possibly it might become less hallucinatory again, which is to your point. I actually don't. I think it's pretty good on that sort of stuff. Like personally, I'm pretty comfortable with it, doing stuff like descriptions. But yeah, as it like agents and taking over browsers, and yeah, if I said like go to like the Walgreens website, I don't know if you do, or like Tesco website in the UK, and said buy me some eggs, like what would it do with that? Like maybe I need to test it out. But first of all, it would take too long. It would take like 20 minutes. By the time I've prompted it and checked its work, I could have just done it anyway. And then what selection of eggs is it going to get? So is it going to get 6 or 12 or 24? Are they going to be barn eggs, organic eggs, all that sort of stuff? You're going to have to interact with it. So I just find that at the minute it's too clunky. I do see a future where it's much more voice controlled and that you're able to talk to your devices in a much more seamless fashion and they act on your behalf and ask you questions. But in a chat interface in the browser, I'm not so sure about.
I keep thinking about all these things in my life that I can automate, and then I think about the work that it would take for me to automate these things, because I love automations. I'm a marketer. Any good marketer loves automations. But I think about the work that it would take me to automate that stuff, and then I go, is it even worth it? Is that workflow going to change in like 30 days? Is it going to make so many mistakes that I'm just going to spend way too much time checking it, and I'm actually going to become like less efficient? So yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Atlas are pretty hesitant. Actually, it's okay. I want to go back to SEO for a moment, or for a good moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is SEO and geo like the same? Do you think they're the same thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, since Google's existed, right? Like, there's always going to be changes to the algorithm and tweaks and stuff like that. I think what you're seeing now with AIO is a kind of quite a different shift, because the way that information is retrieved is now different. Relies a lot more on retrieval augmented generation. But Google itself says, well, just do the same as you were. Like, it doesn't. And a lot of people in SEO will say, "Oh, right, never believe Google," but it's a pretty good source to kind of look at that. And then we published 3 white papers in the spring that really wanted to look into AI and SEO. And within that, I researched quite a lot of articles about how to rank in ChatGPT and AIO and things like that. and it was always the headline, how to rank, and then it was like, just do SEO. But they wouldn't actually say that, right? So it's kind of disingenuous. They wouldn't say,
they can't, because it's boring.
Yeah, so they would say, like, here's how to rank, write good content, have authority. I guess that how to write good content posts is going to be kind of generic anyway, right? But I could literally find nothing other than someone said, cite more statistics, right? And I just think that is kind of content 101. I specifically remember hearing that in history class, either when I was 15 or 16, about how to build authority, or what are the fundamentals of building authority as a historian, like people, places, dates, which is objective facts, citations to statistics, and quotes, right? All of those things are in the Google search quality guidelines anyway. So I don't really see any difference whatsoever. Actually, on the post, some people started saying, now to rank on geo, we need comparison tables and quotes. And I was like, again, those things are blatantly in the search quality guidelines. So I don't know what we're doing different now.
Well, some people, if I was playing devil's advocate, I would be like, okay, yeah, but there's things to focus on that are a lot more important for geo than for SEO, like best of articles or comparison tables, or optimizing for branded searches or reviews, having a lot of mentions. If I'm playing devil's advocate, that's what I would say to you.
But best of articles are like totally SEO, 100%. Like there's no, if you look at, like, say, a publisher who's trying to get rank for travel related keywords, right? At the top of funnel will be best guide to, best things to do in, best hotels in, best this, best that. That's where it starts. So I just don't see any difference between, say, like doing SEO for, say, the travel section of the New York Times versus geo travel, right? What's the difference? There isn't really. And I think, sticking in things like comparison tables to me are just like, that's just good data, right? And that helps people understand what's on a page. Again, that's what SEO is. And I think there's often something I feel in SEO is like there's often a kind of focus on sort of minor tinkering things, when actually, like, if you think of the fundamentals, like what makes a good piece of content, like, well, obviously good writing, authority, facts, right? They're all just SEO, and that's all geo. Like there's no real the presentation of that information is obviously really important. Having a comparison table works for both.
I'm gonna ask you about these AI tracking tools in a moment, tracking AI visibility. But so before I'd like for you to give your background, because I found out about you from Rand Fishkin, and I think Rand Fishkin, he gave you a shout out or he commented, but yeah, I found out about you through Rand, and maybe it was both, but might have been both. But yeah, so could you share your background?
Sure. I've always worked in SEO actually since about 2006. First at a travel website, then I worked for an agency in London for about a year. I worked for Sega, the games company. And then in 2010, I started working in publishing. So
what were you doing for Sega?
I was web editor for Europe. So then,
cool.
Yeah, and I would say it was like sort of like just when Facebook was getting big, and still a lot of companies didn't know that much about SEO. But I had a good background in working for an agency, so I kind of knew my way around it. Yeah, working 12 months in an agency back then really did set you ahead, because like you really knew your stuff. And then so I went to a publisher called Bauer Media. It's a large pan-European publisher, and I was there for about 2.5 years. Became head of audience there. Then kind of went consulting for about 2.5 years and worked for a smaller publisher. Then I was head of SEO and social media at the Telegraph, which is one of the newspapers of records in the UK. At the time, it had about 40 million unique users a month. And we had
How long were you head of SEO for the Telegraph?
2 years, 8 months, I think.
You must have learned a lot.
I mean, news is really specific, so it's quite different from thinking about ranking on the organic standard results is very much kind of link building, promotional centric, building authority is all really important. That's still, having authority is obviously really important in news, but then on top of that, you have a completely different algorithm, and you're really competing against a very select group of publishers rather than, say, the entire internet. So I think that was just a very big contrast. Of course, publishers do rank on the standard results as well, but like competing in top stories every day for those top spots, if you're talking around an election, some of those top spots can be worth millions in a day. You get literally getting millions of clicks. Say US election last year, I went back to the Telegraph and went to DC, and we were doing news SEO there. So after that, I did Brexit and Trump's first term, and I was like, "Wow, this is pretty hard work." So I then joined a broadcast startup called History Hit, which is like not news whatsoever. Like history is the antithesis of news, it never goes out of date. But we had a podcast network and a video channel. But then on top of that, we were like, well, I'm a big believer in inbound marketing and SEO. We had a really good social presence for the brand. And we invested quite heavily in building historyhit.com from, say, basically being fairly broken WordPress site of about 10,000 users to something that was a serious revenue driver of like 1.5 million that drove into and made referrals into the podcast network and video on demand. So
what's the Pareto for how you made that transformation? Like what's the 20% that got 80% of results there?
Doubling down on what worked when we saw it did. And I'd have to cast my mind back to about 2020, so it's a long time ago. But one example, and I'm not saying that this would still work now, is that we just knew that a lot of people in, say, history search for facts. So like list of facts about X, or things to do with who, what, where, why, and how, and causes, and things like that. So we just doubled down on that sort of stuff and grew the audience that way. And we ended up having a slightly different audience to our core products, but we knew that there was a lot of value because we've referred a lot of traffic into those core products. So yeah, it's a kind of, it's a good way to build an extra audience, but just to have this large amount of traffic coming from Google, you'd invested money in it, but it's cheaper than getting 1.5 million referrals from ads, etc. is quite difficult work. So in a way, it created this natural PR, and over time our brand got bigger. But yeah, we had having a podcast in the top 20 in the UK is also extremely valuable for brand building, and that's one of the things we had. So yeah, I kind of got a kind of good full picture sense of how audience management and building works. Like I've always been involved in social media as well, and I just think it's a really important part of the mix. That's always, I've got to say, like I've been surprised at the engagement with SEO conferences on the social media front a bit. I know it's an SEO conference, but like I think there's a lot more kind of co-joinment around those two things that are seen as separate disciplines, but actually if you use them together can be really effective.
Yeah, I got into social media, like heavy social. So I have I guess like 200 and almost 20,000 followers on Instagram and 125,000 on TikTok. And I've just been posting literally every day without missing a single day since making videos since November 1st, 2022. Haven't missed a single day since I started. Similarly, this podcast is I think episode 842 or 43 days in a row, no days missed. And I very quickly learned with social media that the algorithms, just understanding SEO algorithms, helped me a ton to understand social media algorithms. And like you understand, you don't want people to bounce from your content. You want people to stay engaged. You want to hook people right away. Like you need to know how to do good copy in order to say engaging things when you're talking. And yeah, I mean, like I think I'm much better at social media because I knew SEO. Oh my gosh, and then actually like knowing how to use keywords in my content I have so many people who discover my stuff and they were like looking for a very specific thing in SEO, and my content will come up and they'll be like, oh my God, who is this guy? And they'll just watch, so they'll just binge on my stuff because I'm taking tons of keywords and I'm putting them in my descriptions and I'm putting them in my titles. And yeah, I think it made me the crossover, and you can influence branded searches. You can launch linkable assets. There's so many benefits. If you are doing SEO, there are so many benefits to also doing social media and doing it well. Like for a start, any company should at least have social media accounts. Any company should have social media accounts. Make a few posts, have your website linked to in your socials, like have a bio, have a descriptive bio, not just like we are this company, but actually like what the company does. Put up a few posts, put rich descriptions for the posts. Like that's the bare minimum. But yeah, there's so many benefits for actually, if you're doing SEO, for actually going hard with social media as well.
Yeah, and what you just said there as well, just like it just suggests that it's kind of one of the same mix, right? Why do we have this division between saying like geo and SEO, right? Sort of like divide and conquer rather than just saying, well, actually, there's this thing that is kind of like digital marketing and it's organic, but you don't pay for it. But being good at one doesn't exclude you from another, and it's best if these things work together.
So going back to that discussion, you said it's also not very trackable. Like AI visibility is not very trackable. So should consultants, should companies, should individuals even bother investing in AI visibility tracking tools?
I would say no right now. The reason being, what I don't want to confuse is like Google AIO is still quite big, right? Whatever, 12% of Google is big, and
Huge.
Yeah, but yeah, as a percentile of your overall search and visibility, it's not that big, generally speaking. So I don't want to completely dismiss the whole concept of AI tracking in total, but I would say ChatGPT and Perplexity are not really relevant in this equation. Like they're too small as referrals, and the internal workings of these visibility tools doesn't really give you that much information from what I've seen. I have seen a few presentations showing AI visibility and referral, and I couldn't really understand what the visibility was. And the click-through, I've got to say, every time I've seen anything that shows ChatGPT and Perplexity, I've just been like, why are we talking about this? You can't be serious. Like, this is under hundreds. Like, if you're talking big websites and you're getting well under 1,000 sessions from something, I'm just thinking, why are we talking about this? And I think I watched one demo where Perplexity was in double digits, and it's just like, this is really not a good use of time. We should be talking about something else. And so I suppose in one way it's good to have that conversation so someone can say, why are we doing this? Right? So that we can actually see the data and see it's not very important. But there's also like just a kind of Wild West about it, like a mad trend. And 2025 has been a big year for AI. Like the pace is really geared up, I think. Like videos really exploded, and there's GPT-5 is a massive launch. So there's a lot going on. But in the summer, I think I saw a post that was counted for, say, 35 LLM tracking startups, chatbot tracking startups. And it's like, well, how many can there be? And I even saw one last week saying that they're closed already. And it's like, well, yeah, because there can't be a product market fit because you can't really measure it at the moment. It's just too difficult. So I don't really understand how that can work.
So you think these AI visibility tools are kind of like it's BS, and it's just people being sold to who want to buy something that is actually kind of useless. Is that accurate to describe your perspective?
I've got to be a bit more careful than that, I think. Okay. But I'd say, it's like how to frame that. I just think it's not really a thing. Like, how can you really measure chatbot visibility? Like, how can we be like, for starters, like what percentile of your customers are actually using something like ChatGPT?
Why can't it be measured?
With the visibility inside a chatbot, I'm just not really sure
Yeah.
that data actively exists.
Well, you can look at query fanouts. Like you can go and see how ChatGPT is searching.
Well, in terms of, can you see the number of impressions in ChatGPT? Is that what the certain tools claim that they can show?
Oh, that I can't answer.
Exactly. And I don't think many people can. I mean, if there was such a tool, then I'd be very interested in looking at it, but I don't think there is. And I also think it's a folly to say we should be tracking impressions on anything, because we know that they're problematic. If you started measuring your marketing success by the number of likes and views you've got on TikTok, then you'd probably have no business, within a couple of months, like in a while, because the numbers are so absolutely juiced. Like how do you LinkedIn impressions, right? What are they? They are glimpses of posts. They are not interesting. They're like minor indications of like how engagement works for you and what your visibility is. And so unless you can get something tangible out of a tracking tool, then what is it? Are we getting referrals? Can we measure any revenue? Can we measure like some sort of engagement metric beyond a click? Like, I don't believe that any kind of chatbot visibility tool can do that in a better way than Google Analytics can, right? So why bother? Go.
Yeah, I want to take the point again of the devil's advocate executive who's countering you on this, and he's like, okay, I hear your point. You're saying that AI assistants, they're not sending a lot of traffic, or it just like the user base, it's just a way better use of time for optimizing for just normal SEO, because with normal SEO, there's a lot more people, there's a lot more users, a lot more searchers. And like you said, like a lot of the things that work for SEO also work for geo. But I'm still feeling geo because, like I feel like, and this is me again playing devil's advocate, I feel like the people who are heavily using AI tools to ask questions about companies or to discover new companies or new tools, new solutions, new services, they might have more money than the average searcher on Google. So they actually might be better customers.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's not a completely unsound logic, right? They're paying $20 a month for a tool, but I think when we look at user data for ChatGPT, say that, I don't know what the latest session count is. Sessions are probably a couple of billion now. I'm not sure it's a billion monthly users, but most of those users are free. Like, they're not actually paying, and so they're actually quite low interactivity. They have a very limited amount of time that they can use ChatGPT for in the day, and like, what percentile of them are actually using it for product-based search? Now, I can tell you that we can all talk about our own usage of a particular product and kind of proclaim that that's how everyone uses it, right? But how much do I do product research on ChatGPT versus my normal daily work on ChatGPT? Like, I'd say like 95% is not search. Like, it's Q&A about how to use stuff properly, which might be a form of search, but generally I'm using it to find out how to do things, like how do I use this product better? How do I use it as a retrieval augmented generation to understand how to use automation tools? Those things like functionally help me to do my job. If I'm looking for advice on products and stuff like that, I still think there's a lot of value in reading editorial, and ChatGPT can recommend certain stuff around that. And sometimes I do find it fascinatingly excellent for like retrieving information and providing it to me. But to say that is the sort of default of why people use ChatGPT is obviously not correct. And the secondarily, like, if you can prove that like the number of people coming through are more valuable than Google, right? It's still like quite difficult to at the moment to sort of compare the two sources, because you're like, well, if we did all this kind of like work to optimize specifically to get better visibility in ChatGPT, is there really any evidence that the catchment pool is still anywhere near as big as Google, or is going to turn as big as Google? So I still think it's like return to the fundamentals and think about, just do things more generally and broadly rather than worry about the specifics of this one entity.
Do you think brands' SEO strategy should change at all due to AI overviews and reduce click-through rates from AI?
I don't necessarily think that they should change their SEO strategy. Not really. I think that the game has changed in terms of quality of content, like noticeably in the last couple of years, because you can get a lot more information from AI overviews, or say, you can get the information from ChatGPT as well. But I would say you want to, if you kind of write like content and try and rank on the web, right? Like previously you didn't have this AIO at all. And so you could probably write stuff that was like not as authoritative or not as kind of fact checked or not as rigorously done and still rank. And I think AIO kind of like cleans a lot of that up, like pushes a lot of that down. And so your competition has got a lot fiercer. And so, thinking about how are your authors trusted? How do you show expertise? Going back to EAT principles. But they were important anyway, right? And it's always this kind of circular motion to me. It's just like, well, we need to focus more on this thing that was already a thing. And I think that by its nature, web content gets more competitive over time. It just absolutely must happen because the cost of production decreases, because digital tools come out which enable people to do things faster. So if you look at video, the price of production is going drastically down, like really fast. Now you can generate video, right? So in that case, it's going to get more competitive. I would actually say one of the best kind of SEO strategies now, thinking about this more, is like to have a YouTube channel and to put authoritative content on it. Because if AIO becomes an increasing share of visibility, which, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that it will, then YouTube is going to be a major source of that. And where's the most long form content on the internet? It's all on YouTube. There's loads of it, right? It's, you have a 30-minute video and it's 3,000 plus words of information. And a lot of the people speaking on it will be authorities. They put a lot of effort into the production. So I think that is kind of quite important. But what I don't see is many of that I don't really see that kind of talk in SEO. It's not really,
I talk about it.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Maybe
no, I really do. But most people don't.
I look at LinkedIn too much and just get tidbits of information, I think.
I talk about it. For me, so in 2019, I learned a very specific method of bottom of funnel SEO, which is targeting scenarios where people are looking for a solution. This could be a product or this could be a service. They specifically, they know what they want, but they don't know the brand that is going to give them what they want. And these scenarios are represented with keywords, with things that people search. They know what they're trying to achieve, but they don't know the brand that's going to allow them to achieve it. And so I started creating these bottom of funnel SEO landing pages targeting these scenarios. And I found that they were like massively under targeted by other companies in any space, actually, because they're way at the bottom of the funnel. So they have very low searches compared to like informational keywords, and the informational keywords are sexy. That's where the volume is, and people want to be where the volume is. They want those vanity clicks because a lot of marketers don't know any better. So these scenario-based bottom of funnel transactional keywords tended to be like wide open, and I just had to create these conversion-based landing pages targeting the keywords. Mm-hmm. And they not only did they rank faster, require less words per page, require less backlinks, but they were also like wildly durable, to the point where the pages that I made in 2019, 6 years later, are still ranking #1 for their target keywords. And then AI comes around and ChatGPT starts surfacing what's in these bottom of funnel SEO landing pages that I made. And it still surfaces these things. And AI overviews quotes these things. And I became convinced that this is like the best method of SEO because one, so Ahrefs did some research and they found that that 99% of the keywords that trigger AI overviews are informational in intent, which really makes a lot of sense. There's very little surprise there. Two, like if you are concerned about ChatGPT, you should be concerned about ChatGPT taking clicks away from your top of funnel content, where people might not need to go deeper. They might not need to go into the article, or they can just ask the questions right there. ChatGPT can solve the informational stuff for you because you can query it and just ask more info. ChatGPT isn't going to be your shirt. It's not going to be your SaaS. You can make it your SaaS, but it'll take a lot of work. So it's not really going to be your SaaS. It's not going to be your plumber. And targeting keywords where it's just going to send you in the right direction is, for me, that is like, and I won't even say my SEO strategy changed. It's just, this is the type of thing that I think works really well. It works the best for SEO, and I think it also works the best. I never liked the name Geo, but if we were to use the name Geo, it also works the best for that.
Yeah, I totally, definitely hear you on the sort of different queries that AIO appears for, and a lot of it is very top informational stuff, right? Like where it's almost bad for a user to click into results to get that information. It's a bad user experience, for instance, for me to go onto Google and search baby names beginning with B and then click into a website and have to make several clicks to find a baby name beginning with B, right? I'd much rather have an AIO solve that problem. Like, but like, how much value is in that search? Like, it's really, really low. And that is the data I've got in front of me. It's like informational searches make up 47% of where an AIO will show. So when you get into
47,
yeah, I mean this was data taken in March, but I wouldn't imagine it's like radically changed since then, because the transactional and navigational searches are not going to suddenly shoot up. It's not going to happen. Because
but the thing is, even if they do shoot up, it's the AI is still going to be recommending your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, like
that's why I think, like, I will say, so you were head of SEO for one of the biggest publishers, and obviously a lot about doing SEO for publishers. If there was something that changed because of AI, I think it's probably in the publishing space. It's probably in the informational content.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that you have some strong thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% going to change. Like, I actually think that the concept of a destination website, is not going to change overnight. But I do think that there has to be a better trade-off between what appears in, say, chatbots and what the bargain is, right? Like, if you take content from someone else or an opinion or something else and curate that into a list that is provided on a chatbot, what is the website, the publisher, getting from that arrangement? And that's the same with AIO at the minute. I think that structure at the minute is challenged. It's not existential, but it's definitely challenged. And you can see a lot of kind of publishers saying traffic's going down over the last year or so. I think there's more to it than just saying AI. It's just like the web is saturated, right? We might have hit the peak. So people stop using search as much because social media,
getting their news from TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Like from
YouTube.
Social media is still growing, and in many senses, and people don't leave those gardens necessarily. So percentages of population might not use Google one year versus the next. Like that, you also observe some of that sort of statistics in Britain. Like, say, share went down to 89% rather than 90%. I don't see that as a trend necessarily, but it's just an interesting observation. And I think in the future that publishers may have to be thinking more about sort of packages that are provided direct to users via, I think subscription is just, I just think it's a great model, and it's the way that publishing kind of needs to go. And the free internet view of publishing is a slightly antiquated model that, 10 years ago we might have thought that was possible, but I don't think it is anymore. And potentially there will be packages of content that will be sold, that will be licensed to agents, that will be distributed on chatbots and stuff like that. And there are licensing deals so that OpenAI, Claude, etc. can access this content and put it on there to train on it and provide it. But I think that bargain's not quite worked out properly as yet.
What do you think of what Cloudflare has done?
Remind me.
They have, I forget the term. It's like pay per something, but they are blocking AI crawlers, and you say the price. I think it's you say the price that you will allow LLMs to use your content at.
Oh yeah. So I remember certain bits of this. Is that the number of scrapes?
Oh, and they're literally blocking AI. So like if you set up a new Cloudflare for a domain, by default, LLMs will be blocked by default, and you actually have to manually toggle it on.
Yeah, I think it's good to give some power back to the website owners, right? Like they haven't signed up to this bargain, and if tech companies can just kind of take content without kind of respecting anything to do with copyright or training, etc., or what the ethics of that are, then I think it is right for someone like Cloudflare to help the industry, because Cloudflare is probably going to benefit from having more domain owners, right? Like, so it's in their interest to do that. I also think like Perplexity and Anthropic have been in quite a lot of trouble, like consistently, and Perplexity particularly for not respecting.
They're getting sued now from Reddit.
Exactly. Yeah, just saw that last week, right? And it's like, what a surprise! Like again, this quite small entity that's well funded is not playing by the rules, and I think people are going to get quite fed up with that kind of attitude, to the point where companies are so well founded, but the Anthropic fine, the settlement that was about a month ago for training on copyrighted work, it's billions of dollars, right? Like this kind of, it doesn't go away when you have $1 billion settlement. Like, it's a big deal, and I think we're still in a bit of a difficult time between those two bargaining powers, but I think regulators will probably step in at some point as well to say, like, this isn't fair. You need to give more the bargain back, because it's already pretty one-sided with Google even sending traffic to publishers, right? They're taking a huge amount of the UK and US advertising market away from publishers, but they're giving them traffic as if that solves the issue. Well, not really, but if they don't even send traffic, then what's going on? So yeah, that's a major. I wouldn't say it's existential now, but like it could get to that. For some publishers, we could be like, we're paying essentially for bots to access our website because they're hitting our server logs.
Yeah. All right. So you were head of SEO at the Telegraph for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What SEO advice would you give to publishers, either aspiring publishers, or there's actually a lot of pretty big publishers who listen to this podcast regularly, so larger publishers as well?
I think the sort of registration, newsletter and subscription commercial strategy is one that I would always want to work with. I think it's the best model ultimately. I think combined with that, it's like paying more attention to YouTube and trying to get and more focus on getting that right, because it's easy to dismiss it, because if you're a publisher who's very used to text content, then this multimedia thing seems a bit confusing. You need a lot of space, you need people who understand cameras, all this sort of stuff, right? It is different. But once you get that sorted out, like, you can have a lot, like, you can have a flow of stuff. And the reason why I'm fascinated about it as well is like 13% of US TV sets. That's the share of YouTube viewing on TV sets. It's massive, right? And that is going to go up. Like, I don't see it any other way that YouTube's share of TV is going to go down, right? So there's going to be, while it is getting more competitive, the cost of production is going down, and the overall share of TV sets is going up. So I think that's vital. And I think while the destination website model is going to be challenged, like, there's a lot to say, okay, you've got a video channel, you're creating the right stuff, it then feeds into registration, into subscription, and that to me is a strong model.
Did you see what happened with House Fresh?
Possibly. I see it. What happened?
House Fresh is this air purifier review site, and they got hit by the HCU. I think it was. They got. I think they were at like 50,000 visits a month from organic search in 2023, and then a few months later, they were hit by the HCU, and they were at like 1,000 visits a month. And you see their traffic just drop down in a diagonal line, and it drops down to like 1,000 visits a month, and they stay there for a couple of months, and then they get out of that box. So they're out of the HCU. There was kind of like a big deal around this. I think they put up some viral article. They get out of that, and they go up slightly, and now they're at like I'm just like, I reported on this, or I shared this on a podcast like a week or two ago, so I don't remember the exact numbers, but they were then maybe at like, let's say 5,000 a month, right? Or maybe like 10,000 a month. And now they are at 200,000 visits a month from organic search. They are at 4 times their peak before the HCU. And one of the things that they credit, if memory serves, was that they doubled down on YouTube. And so what's so interesting is they double down on YouTube, but because they're getting so many more branded searches now, and because the content all plays into each other, they have the YouTube videos on their site, and the site links to their YouTube videos and all this stuff. It all plays into each other. They are at 4 times their peak before the HCU. YouTube is, I think, if memory served, YouTube was a major part of that.
I think the other thing with YouTube, if you're going to make 30-minute videos, right? Like, you're either going to interview someone who's like an expert, or you're going to script it. Very rare are you going to sort of go into a YouTube channel and just like improvise for 30 minutes. It's not going to happen. So you've got an incredible amount of content via transcripts, talking to an expert, or having written it yourself, that then can be distributed elsewhere on top of what the video is as well. It can be, turned into a PDF or something like that, and then that PDF can be converted into a newsletter. I think it's just thinking about that content strategy from like, what is essentially the most tricky thing to produce at the minute. Probably a 30-minute YouTube video is quite, rather than, doing a TV documentary is probably going to be harder again. But from there, you're going to have a lot of text essentially that you can redistribute and remix in different ways. So I think it's important to think about those kind of top level big pieces of content that can filter down into helping you on lots of other places like LinkedIn or my newsletter this week was essentially an AI rewrite with me editing of a YouTube script that promoted that YouTube video.
You said there's like 10 AI tools that you really would recommend. I think you said something like that at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You mentioned 10 tools. What are those 10 tools?
I think basically the 3 chatbots. Like, I love Claude projects, and it's sometimes hard to dislodge from ChatGPT, but I think Claude projects is just like an awesome way to create content quite quickly and having a really good retrieval system. I think when you're getting into video editing, which I do quite a lot, Firecut's a really good tool. It's amazing for doing subtitles, things like that. I think Descript is just really good for podcast editing.
That's what I use.
Yeah, I think it's just, if you're doing podcast editing specifically, I just think it's a cut above. It's just such an easy app to use versus something like Adobe Systems, which are slightly different and not quite as AI-ified yet. And what are the tools that I use? I still use Midjourney a lot, and I just think it's a better app for image generation. For video, I'm starting to get more model agnostic. So I used to have subscriptions for like VO3 and then Runway and things like that. But now I'm just kind of getting into using FreePick and using like various models from that to generate stuff.
Oh yeah.
So,
And you were mentioning images. Nano Banana, actually, we use that for our thumbnails for this show constantly. We'll get a headshot from a guest. We don't like the headshot. We'll use Nano Banana and make it into like something really expressive.
yeah. I mean, like, one thing is with a lot of stock libraries, they've started accessing models. So like Envato, for instance, you can use it to generate image, video, and it's got Nano Banana in it. It's like, well, hey, this is so much easier than using like 30 different apps. So I think that's welcome to see, in that you can start using different models and different things. And things are slowly improving rather than having to have, say, a suite of 10 different apps. I'm trying to think of 11 labs. That's awesome as well. Like, I think things like voice cloning have a cynical view. It's like, all right, we're going to copy someone's voice to use it for AI. Like, there's a real production advantage in using that, which I probably have to share for another time. But like, 11 Labs is a really, really good app.
Yeah, 11 Labs is great. James, thank you so much for being here. Where should everybody find you?
Primarily on LinkedIn. If you just search for James Carson, absolutely agentic, I'm there and I post most days. So if you want to connect with me, go ahead. And if you see something you like, give us a like and a comment. I talk about geo occasionally, but mostly, it's about AI. I talk about hype a lot as well. Like, let's calm down a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I hope one of the questions I didn't have a chance to ask you was, you said, as far as I can tell, geo, AIO, ETC is a bubble created by software companies as a new growth area. It's still tiny, and agencies jockeying for relevance. And yeah, I would like to ask your thoughts on the bubble, but we'll save that for another time.
All right.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Please stick around after I hit stop, as your video will have to upload. For everybody watching and listening, this is episode 842 of The Edward Show. This is my daily digital marketing podcast, 842 days in a row doing this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.